Part 151. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 1501. Chapter 1501 Achievements 1. I thought you were so cool. You dare to point a gun at Fei Shen, don't you dare to have feelings? At most, you are shooting at yourself, and you even talk about perfecting me and Fei Shen. Do you really think I will believe it? You are simply trying to kill each other to prevent me from being with any of you. Qi Lili sighed deeply, and gently touched Murongye's pale and bloodless face with her gentle hands. The look in his eyes changed drastically from the past. You were annoying before, but you are even more annoying now. Hey! Look at you, have I been with you for a long time? I've talked a lot of nonsense. I've been talking to myself for so long without realizing it, but you should say something back. As she spoke, Qi Lili's eyes turned red and her heart ached. Slowly stood up and touched his pale face, his high bridge of nose and pale lips. She sighed deeply and kissed him on his red lips. They stayed there for a few seconds. Just as Qi Lili was about to leave, a pair of big hands hugged her head and pushed her down, deepening the kiss. A light touch could no longer satisfy him, he needed a more passionate kiss. Murongye had actually woken up a long time ago. He just closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. When he heard Qi Lili's words, especially the one about suffocating him to death, he almost jumped up in anger. Fortunately, he held back and stopped behind her. He also discovered that she dared to kiss him secretly. Murongye forcefully swept away Qi Lili's fragrance and even lured her into his mouth, where he continued to kiss her deeply. The two of them kissed so passionately that Murongye didn't dare to let go of Qi Lili until she could hardly breathe. Qi Lili glared at him shyly. So you are awake, when did you wake up? Murongye licked his lips and tilted his head. You still care about my life and death? This bastard. Qi Lili was so angry that she wanted to hit him. Just a moment ago, he was kissing her dominantly, but the next second, he turned away from the book and even turned around. Forget it. For the sake of him being injured, don't get angry with him. What nonsense are you talking about? How could I not care about your life or death? You have it, Murongye said angrily, causing the wound to be pulled, and his face became even paler. Lie down, don't let the wound bleed. You won't feel bad anyway, Murongye said angrily. You just want to leave, and you want to break up with me. Do you think I, Murongye, is the one you want to get rid of? You are my woman now, and you can only be my woman in this life, unless I die. Qi Lili covered his mouth and stared at him angrily with cold eyes. She really wanted to cut his mouth. Don't say that again. It's a matter of death or not. If you continue to be like this, believe it or not, I will really ignore you. Humph! Someone turned his head and snorted arrogantly. I didn't really want to break up with you when I left. Murongye looked at her in disbelief. It wasn't you. You were so impulsive at the time that you couldn't even listen to what I said. I originally thought that if I turned around and left, you would chase me. Who knew you would do something stupid? What a fool I am. You still said no. What will I do if you die? Love words came out of Qi Lili's mouth unconsciously. Both of them were stunned and looked at each other. Qi Lili didn't know how to talk about love. When the two of them were together, this was the first time that Qi Lili said such disgusting words, and she said it so naturally. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 1502. Chapter 1502 Achievements in Perfection 2. Both of them were stunned and looked at each other. Qi Lili didn't know how to talk about love. When the two of them were together, this was the first time that Qi Lili said such disgusting words, and she said it so naturally. Even when she was with Tang Feishan, Qi Lili never said such words. Without Tang Feishan, she would be very painful, but she would never say anything to Tang Feishan about what to do without him. Mirongye was obviously very happy, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up, and he even pouted awkwardly. Without me, you would have been with Tang Feishan. What do you mean? You still think I will be with Feishan? Do you want to be with me? Mirongye still said awkwardly, looking at Chi Lili with his small eyes, and couldn't help but become nervous. They say you usually talk nonsense, but now you talk nonsense again. Want to be with me? Mirongye was not satisfied with Chi Lili's nonsense. She must ask clearly about this kind of thing. Yes. With you, Mirongye. Chi Lil sighed helplessly. Mirongye's pale face and somewhat gloomy expression suddenly shone brightly, and his eyes became piercing. He sat up from the bed and pulled Chi Lil into his arms regardless of the wound. Really? You want to be together now? There is no other reason. You really have fallen in love with me and will never be separated from me again? No longer be involved with that little Tang Feishan, and then we can have together a pair of twins who are as cute as Tang, holding hands and playing in the amusement park, hugging each other, and growing old together with me? Mirongye became excited and his natural thoughts reappeared. Who said I wanted to marry you? Chi Lil blushed and pushed him gently. Then if you don't marry me, do you want to marry Tang Feishan? Mirongye's excitement turned into sadness. Who said that? I should, maybe marry you for the time being. Really, then why did you? Mirongye was still a little nervous. The happiness came too suddenly. He was a little carried away. He looked at the woman he loved without daring to blink. I was afraid that if I blinked, she would disappear and I would realize that I was just dreaming. Are you finally willing to listen to my explanation? Mirongye nodded wildly. He was too impulsive just now and didn't listen to Chi Lili's explanation at all. He was also overwhelmed by jealousy. I originally heard that Chi Lili had an appointment with Jian Yuman to come to the neighborhood today. She and Chi Lili got into trouble a few days ago, so I came over secretly to see what she was doing. Unexpectedly, when he saw Chi Lili and Tang Feishan hugging each other, he was instantly overwhelmed by jealousy and couldn't hear what Chi Lili said. I was trying to make Feishan give up, so I just said a bunch of things. Chi Lili slowly talked about what happened at the beginning, which made Mirongye stunned for a moment. You don't know who the child is? Do you think it might be mine? Mirongye opened his mouth in surprise, then turned away in embarrassment. What do you mean by that? Mirongye touched the back of his head in embarrassment and hesitated. Chi Lili narrowed her eyes. I said. In fact, I didn't have with you at all back then. You were so drunk that I took you home. I didn't take off your clothes or anything. I just said those words to tease you. Play, I didn't expect you to take it seriously. Chi Lili was speechless for a moment. So I was deceived by you. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1503. Chapter 1503 Achievements 3. This is not a lie, you are obviously stupid. Mirongye said this without thinking to irritate Chi Lili, and she was so angry that she almost hit him with her fists. Chi Lili felt relieved after understanding what happened that year. At least it proved that she had not felt sorry for Tang Feishan when she was with him. Are you angry? Mirongye stretched out his hand and carefully grabbed the corner of her clothes. No. You're obviously angry, why don't you admit it? You want to hit me, scold me, whatever you want. I didn't expect you to do that at first. If I knew you suspected it was me, I would definitely explain it. You talk so much nonsense, Stop talking about it. Chi Lili clenched her fists, really wanting to punch this man. Having been quiet for only a few days, his true nature was exposed again. No more, no more, Murongye smiled happily and hugged Chi Lil into his arms. I can guarantee that I will never deceive you again. Then will you marry me? It depends on my mood. So are you in a good mood today? Not so good. Marry me. Murongye hugged her, kissed her on the face, and then smiled happily, like a fool. Chi Lili shook her head helplessly, touched his face with her hand, and murmured softly. Do you mind that I was once pregnant with someone else's child? I don't mind, that's all in the past, as long as you carry my children from now on, Murongye said happily. Lili could completely accept him, which made him so happy that he couldn't stop smiling even if he wanted to. Then you don't mind that I might be infertile, I might not be able to have our child. When it comes to this, Chi Lili feels a little melancholy. She had a miscarriage, which caused her health to deteriorate and make it more difficult for her to conceive. It is very likely that she will not have children in her life. I don't mind, you are enough. I'm afraid that the child will show up and the child from me. It's hard to be with you, and I don't want another person to disturb us. Murongye looked directly at her, letting her see the sincerity in his eyes. Why are you so stupid? What if the Murong family has no heirs like me? Will your parents jump out of their graves? It's difficult for us to conceive, but it's not that we can't have children at all. If you are really afraid that you won't be able to have children and will delay me, why don't we start making children now? Murongye's eyes completely lit up, and his hands began to move around her body. What are you doing? Chi Lil moved his hand away with some embarrassment. You are hurt. This little injury has no effect on me. I shot him in the stomach before, and I fought back vigorously. Now, there are only minor injuries under the ribs. Someone's hands became more and more dishonest. You see, we have been dating for several months, and you have never let me touch you. I can't help it for a long time. Lili, you said that the doctor said you might be infertile, but that's not because you haven't practiced it before. Maybe you can succeed with me in just one try. Lili, are you okay? Murongye's hands became more and more dishonest. He had already slipped into Chi Lili's clothes and gently rubbed her back, which made Chi Lili get goosebumps all over her body. She hasn't touched a man in 4 years, and her body was sensitive enough to respond to Murongye's slightest touches. Let's talk about it after you recover. No. Just now, I don't mind. Small kisses fell on Chi Lili's face and neck, constantly sliding down. Tisk. I'm injured and still want to eat meat. Murong. Murong. As your own mother, I'll be nice to you. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1504. Chapter 1504 Achievements 4. No. Just now, I don't mind. Small kisses fell on Chi Lili's face and neck, constantly sliding down. You're not afraid of bleeding to death. Chi Lili was no longer as persistent as before, her body acting against her psychology under Murongye's temptation. I'm not afraid. I'm satisfied to die on Lili's body. Murongye's hands had already unbuttoned her inner lining. Although it was a little awkward at first, she still managed to unbutton it with her efforts. Ah! So exciting! So happy! Lili did not resist and did not throw him out. Murongye was very happy at this moment. I almost jumped for joy. Chi Lili narrowed her eyes slightly and leaned against Murongye, her eyes filled with radiant excitement. Don't say this word of death again in the future. Good. Murongye was busy attentively and gently put her on the bed, while he lay beside her, looking at her crimson face, reluctant to leave. Stop doing stupid things. Do you know how impulsive you are today? I don't dare anymore, and I won't dare again in the future. I promise that I will never do anything to make you sad again, and I will protect myself well. Otherwise, I will never grow old with you. I don't want Tang Feishan to be with you, like that I will be so angry that I miss you every night. You promised me. I swear. A happy smile appeared on Qi Lili's lips, and she gently hugged the head buried in her chest, enjoying his love. This man was like a fly around her from the beginning. Protect her, love her, and you can't drive her away no matter how hard you try. She never felt pressure when she was with him, and he would never lose his temper, nor would he ask for anything and force her to love him. She is always by her side, just like that part of her body. Brought her a lot of joy and made her monotonous world colorful. Perhaps not long ago, she was still hesitant and a little unable to let go of Tang Feishan. But the moment she saw him fall in front of her, she was so scared, and it was also at that moment that she looked clearly into her heart. It turned out that she had fallen in love with him unknowingly, but she still couldn't let go of her relationship with Tang Feishan back then because of the knot in her heart. Tang Feishan reappeared in her life, which indeed brought a lot of waves to her. She thought it was because she still loved him. Thinking about it now, maybe it was out of dissatisfaction and unwillingness, but more importantly, she was crying bitterly for the humiliation she had brought back then. It was too painful back then, which made her feel suspicious when she touched the wound. This wound will be completely healed sooner or later due to time. The man in front of her has completely become a part of her life. She dare not imagine what her life would be like without him. Fortunately, everything is still in time. Murong yet. I love you. The temperature in the room is getting hotter and hotter, and the gasps between the men and women on the bed are getting louder and louder. The men who were guarding the door silently were leaning together, muttering quietly. Young master has finally achieved righteousness, the man silently cried, and the woman shed tears of gratitude. It's not easy, it's been so many years. Yes. But our young master is really capable, he actually knows how to use this method to let his sister-in-law see her heart clearly. The two looked at each other tacitly and smiled tacitly. In fact, when Qi Lili turned to leave, Murongye gave them a look. After following Murongye for more than 10 years, they still can't understand his thoughts. Shooting himself and pushing his men away were all his bets. Murongye was gambling with his life, even if it was a means, there was still a risk. But Murongye dared to do this without any hesitation. He used this bet to bet on Qi Lili's heart for him. If she was unmoved, he would bless her to leave. If the gun went off, it would be unlucky for him. Fortunately, Murongye won the bet in the end and won Qi Lil's heart, so everything was worth it. So, in relationships, in addition to sincerity, using small means at the right moment is also a skill in relationships. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1505. Chapter 1505, Achieving Positive Results 5. The next day, Qi Lil's face was so red that it was almost congested. She stood aside and listened to the doctor's criticism. I say, you couple, can you please restrain yourself? President Murong is still a patient, how can you do such a strenuous exercise in the hospital? The doctor was treating Murongye's wounds while criticizing them. Qi Lili was already so embarrassed that she wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl in, but there happened to be a person who was heartless and smiled stupidly, as if he had the whole world. She didn't know how to write shy. Murongye feels happy both physically and mentally. Last night, he and Qi Lil finally had happily. Even though the wound split open and needed to be resutured, he didn't care at all. Did you hear that? The doctor deliberately aggravated Murongye's handling methods, but Murongye didn't listen to the doctor's words at all and smiled stupidly. It hurts. It hurts me so much, Murongye screamed in pain and looked at the doctor with resentment. You want my life? What good will it do to you if I lose my life? Why don't you just do some exercise and don't make a fuss? What a fuss? When did you get shot in the body? You are recovering well and you still have the nerve to make a fuss. Look at your wound. If you continue like this, you will stay in bed for another month. The doctor was also depressed. He came to change the gauze early in the morning, only to find that the wound had become serious. He smelled the ambiguous smell in the room and couldn't guess what happened. You single guy doesn't understand, I am working hard for my next generation. Murong yeah, Chi Lili I roared, her face already redder than an apple. This guy who is neither shy nor impatient is still talking. Honey, it hurts so much. Come here and give me a kiss. Just a kiss will make it better. Murong yeah pouted and invited for a kiss. The doctor was speechless. After taking care of the wound, he couldn't help but continue to give some instructions. Be careful, I really can't help but let my sister-in-law do it. After the doctor said this, he left with the nurse. Chi Lili's face turned red again. If she was seriously pregnant, she would faint from shyness. But a certain man who had eaten and drank enough was still smiling stupidly, and even seriously thinking about what the doctor said. Murong yet. You are so happy. I'm so happy, but I think the doctor is right, we'll do it again later, this time you take the initiative. Murong yes eyes shone and he looked at her expectantly. After tasting Chi Lili, he was a little greedy. This feeling was so wonderful that he couldn't control it. Suddenly I thought that what I was doing was so stupid. If they hadn't been injured, they could have fought hundreds of rounds on the bed without any worries. Say it again, believe it or not, I will sew your mouth shut. Chi Lili slapped his mouth angrily. When did this man's mouth become so poor? Hey, wife, don't say it, don't say it, let's just do it. How is it? How is it? Murong yes hand began to touch someone dishonestly again. Go away, who is your wife? I haven't agreed to your proposal yet. Chi Lili slapped Murong yes hand away and glared at him coquettishly. Promise me now. After saying that, Murong ye took out the ring that he had prepared a long time ago. He was not with him last night, so he asked his men to get it overnight. I feel so regretful now that I didn't bring it with me last night. According to the atmosphere last night, she would definitely agree to her proposal. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 1506. Chapter 1506 Crisis 1. I feel so regretful now that I didn't bring it with me last night. According to the atmosphere last night, she would definitely agree to her proposal. Yo, Lulu, what did we see? Qian Yuman, who had been peeking outside the door for a long time, finally pulled Yang Yanliu out of the corner. Their eyes kept going back and forth between Chi Lili and Murong Ye. When I came here just now, the doctor told us not to be too unrestrained between the sheets, otherwise Murong will bleed to death before he is exhausted. Sister, you're teasing me too. The blush that Chi Lil finally faded reappeared on her face. This is not a joke, it's just a statement of facts. Qian Yuman chuckled and put the soup in her hand on the table. She was here today to deliver medicated food to replenish qi and blood. Yesterday I was still worried about how Chi Lili's love triangle relationship would change. This morning, when I met the meaning, I roughly understood that Chi Lili had already confirmed her relationship with Murong. I really didn't expect that it was Murong Ye who won Chi Lili's heart in the end. But I was very happy to see my sister so shy and her expression became more vivid due to Murong Ye. Chi Lili had a cold temperament, only when she was around Murong Ye, she became a little more lively. When he and Tang Feishan were together, the two of them were very quiet, doing their own things, and occasionally communicating. Mirongye would always pester Chi Lili, make her laugh and play with her, and even make her lose her temper. Looking at it this way, Mirongye's brother-in-law seems to be better. Sister, hurry up. Let Lili agree to propose. Mirongye seized the opportunity at this moment and persuaded his relatives and friends to speak for him together. Qian Yuman raised her eyebrows and looked at Chi Lili. Lili, do you want to marry or not? Sister Lili, just agree. You see, my sister-in-law and I are already married, so it's just you. Yang Yanliu was also cheering from the side. Chi Lili glanced around, glanced at Mirongye who was looking at her expectantly, and stuffed the soup in his hand into his mouth. Drink the soup. You have such a weak body and still want me to marry you. Please take care of yourself as soon as possible and I will reply to you as soon as possible. Really, Mirongye's eyes were filled with stars, shining brightly. Chi Lili nodded. Mirongye immediately took the soup and drank it. Okay, we won't disturb you. As a young couple we married people have sent our things and left, goodbye. Qian Yuman waved her hand and Chi Lili and the others said goodbye. Without waiting for Chi Lili and the others to say anything, they left with Yang Yanliu. The two of them walked out of the hospital. Yang Yanliu said with emotion. I'm so envious to see Sister Lili so happy. Yesterday I was worried that their matter wouldn't be resolved. What are you envious of? You and Xingai can do it too. Qian Yuman put her arms around Yang Yanliu's shoulders and pulled her collar. Sure enough, she saw those ambiguous little strawberries again. Yang Yanliu shyly covered her chest and said a little lowly. I find it difficult. Although Xingai and I are married, he is still very cold to me, except in bed. It's okay, take your time, Qian Yuman comforted her by rubbing her shoulders. Well, don't worry, I still have a lifetime to get along with him slowly. This is the right mentality, Qian Yuman smiled and touched her cheek. My Liuliu is so beautiful that all men love her. Sister-in-law. Ha ha ha. Qian Yuman smiled happily and wanted to eat Yang Yanliu's tofu again. Suddenly, at this moment, several men rushed out. Without saying a word, they separated the two of them and forcibly dragged Yang Yanliu away. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1507. Chapter 1507 Crisis 2. The two of them were still talking and laughing, but they didn't expect that in the next second, several strangers would rush out and grab Yang Yanliu and drag him into the car. Qian Yuman and Yang Yanliu were both stunned. Qian Yuman, who had had several kidnapping experiences, was the first to recover and rushed towards Yang Yanliu, but was blocked by the man in black. If you don't want to live, just keep rushing. Who are you? Let go of my siblings. Qian Yuman watched anxiously as Yang Yanliu was dragged into the car by several big men. Qian Yuman was even more anxious. Today she specially ran to Tang Xingai's house to pick up Yang Yanliu. There was no way she could just watch something happen to her and remain indifferent. Get away! The man in black pushed Qian Yuman hard. Let me tell you, my husband is very powerful. If you dare to hurt my siblings, I will make you miserable. No matter what happens, let her go. I will naturally benefit you if you let her go. Qian Yuman's shouting did not scare them. Instead, they stopped and looked at Qian Yuman meaningfully. Is your husband very rich? Qian Yuman felt a chill in her heart, realizing that she had said the wrong thing. She might not be able to save Yang Yanliu, and would have to involve herself. She quickly took a few steps back, hesitating whether to run away and find someone to save her. They took action and grabbed her too. It was too late for her to run away, so they dragged her over and forced her into the same car as Yang Yanliu. It's too late to regret now. She could have avoided being arrested, but now she was arrested. Qian Yuman and Yang Yanliu were roughly pushed into the car, while Qian Yuman was still struggling. What do you want to do? Who sent you here? No matter who it is, as long as you let me go, I will give you a sum of money and I will not hold you accountable for what happened today. How many? 1 million, is it enough? 1 million, to Tiananmen and others, is actually a small number, but to the group of people in front of them, it is not a small number. Are you really willing to give us 2 million? Yes. Tiananmen nodded wildly. The people in front of her smiled in a disgusting way, showing their yellow teeth, which made her feel sick to her stomach. It's so nice to give you 1 million, does that mean that if I kidnap you and threaten your husband, you can get more money? Tiananmen's face turned dark. These people were really greedy and actually wanted more money. Don't go too far. Do you know who my husband is? Tang Yuge, the chairman of the Emgrand Group. Even if you haven't heard of Tang Yuge's name, you people should have heard of Murong Ye, the president of the Emgrand Group. He is my brother-in-law. If you hurt a hair of ours, you will never be able to live without us. Tiananmen moved out of the group of people behind her in an attempt to scare them away. The people in front of her burst into laughter upon hearing this, and were not afraid of those behind her at all. Did you hear it? This woman is threatening us, ha ha ha. You don't know what is good or bad, do you think we will be afraid? Tiananmen's face turned dark, these people were disgusting. What should we do now? Correct. How could she forget? Tiananmen remembered that the necklace Tang Yuge had improved for her had not only a positioning function but also a distress transmitter. As long as she pressed the button on the back of the necklace, Tang Yuge would receive the news and location of their accident. Immediately send someone to look for them. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1508. Chapter 1508 Crisis 3. Tiananmen remembered that the necklace Tang Yuge had improved for her had not only a positioning function but also a distress transmitter. As long as she pressed the button on the back of the necklace, Tang Yuge would receive the news and location of their accident. Immediately send someone to look for them. Accidents often happened, so she had a lot of things asking for help. She had had several experiences, and she was not afraid of a few people in front of her who seemed to be very cruel, but actually did not do anything to them. The target of these people was Yang Yanliu, but she was confused as to where she had offended anyone. She only returned to China in the past few months. She usually stays at home to look after her husband and raise her children, and rarely goes out. How could you offend this group of people? Tiananmen and others were kidnapped. Tang Yuge was in a meeting when his cell phone suddenly rang. There is a software installed in the mobile phone, which is bound to Tiananmen's necklace. As long as there is danger on Tiananmen's side, his cell phone and his bodyguards will receive a distress signal at the same time. At the moment of the accident, Tang Yuge jumped up from his position when he saw the message. Because we were in a meeting, everyone was listening to Tang Yuge's instructions and what needed to be implemented a moment ago. When they saw the chairman's face change drastically and he jumped up from his seat, everyone was shocked. What's wrong? Tang Xingai was also at the meeting and asked with concern when he saw his eldest brother's expression was very bad. My wife is in trouble. She may be in danger and cannot contact me. After saying this, Tang Yuge ran out quickly. Tang Xingai heard that something happened to Tiananmen, his face showed little expression, and he was about to continue the meeting that his eldest brother had not finished, but suddenly something came to his mind. Something happened to my sister-in-law. Luer seems to be with her today. Subsequently, all the executives panicked when they saw Tang Xingai, their chairman's brother and special assistant to the chairman, who always had a calm expression on his face. He also stood up suddenly from his position and strode out without even saying a word, and ran out. What is going on? Tang Xingai quickly took out his mobile phone and called Yang Yanliu. I waited patiently for a reply on the phone, but the phone was turned off. What happened? How could it be turned off? Lure would turn her phone on 24 hours a day. When she went out in the morning, her phone was still full before going out. It was absolutely impossible that her phone was out of battery. She immediately called Murongye because she knew that Jian Yuman and Yang Yanliu were going to visit Murongye together. The call was answered quickly. "Hey, Xingai, why don't you ask me for anything? I have nothing to worry about." Murongye was very happy at the moment. He was eating the little cherry fed by Chi Lili in his mouth. He was in a good mood and spoke in a light tone. "Are my sister-in-law and Lure with you?" "No. What's wrong?" "I've just been away from my wife for a while, and now I miss your wife." "If you miss your wife, just call your wife's phone number." "Why are you calling me? I'm not your wife." Murongye was in a better mood and fell in love, but that didn't mean that his chatty nature had disappeared, and he still chattered a lot. "My eldest brother suddenly jumped up during the meeting just now and said that something happened to my sister-in-law, so I called to ask." "What, something happened to Manman?" Murongye was just carefree, but when he heard about Jian Yuman's accident, he sat up immediately. Chi Lili, who was silently eating fruit aside, also had a trace of worry on her face. "I don't know the situation either. My eldest brother just said a word and disappeared." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1509. Chapter 1509 Crisis 4. "I called just to ask. They said they wanted to come see you together this morning. Did they go?" "Here he is." He didn't sit there for long and then left, probably only for a few minutes. "Okay, thanks." Tang Xingai didn't say any more nonsense and immediately rushed out. Something has definitely happened. Something has definitely happened to Lure and the others, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to contact anyone for so long. Where have they gone? It had only been a few minutes, but the person must still be nearby, and something must have happened right after leaving the hospital. Damn it! Murongye hung up the phone and looked a little ugly. He immediately explained to Chi Lili what happened. "Could it be the same person who kidnapped my sister before?" Chi Lil made a bold guess. In fact, Jian Yuman's side has always been uneasy. Last time, the Wuji organization didn't know the truth and had been looking for trouble for her. Later, Tang Yuj carried out a series of revenge against their organization, and the other party finally became quiet and did not attack her again. A few months have passed, and maybe they are ready to make a move. It's just that they have never been able to figure out why the people from the Wuji organization are making things difficult for them. It's very possible that it's them. They are too brave. The warning to them before was not enough. They actually came to the door again. This time they have to kill them all, Murongye said angrily. His movements were too big and the wound was pulled. "It hurts and screams." "Okay, you're injured, don't worry about this matter, I'll handle it." Okay, Murongye nodded repeatedly. "My men are at your disposal." "I'm leaving." Chi Lil frowned and nodded lightly to him. "I will miss you." Murongye chuckled coldly. Chi Lili raised a faint smile, turned around and left, took out her mobile phone to contact the people around her, and accelerated her search for Jian Yuman and the others. Jian Yuman and Yang Yanliu were now thrown into an abandoned old house, with their hands and feet tied. Jian Yuman was relatively calm and didn't say anything. She sat on the ground and looked at the dark room. It was so dark that she couldn't see her surroundings at all. She couldn't see her fingers and could only vaguely feel Yang Yanliu's position next to her. Yang Yanliu was extremely frightened, and his body was shaking all the time. It was the first time he encountered such a terrifying thing, so he was naturally much more timid than Jian Yuman, who had encountered similar things countless times. "Lulu, don't be afraid, My husband will come to save us. Yang Yanliu nodded, but he was still worried. The surrounding area felt so desolate. It was obviously broad daylight, but there was no light around them at all. The door suddenly opened, and the sudden light made the two of them close their eyes. Take away. Two of the fierce men came over, grabbed Yang Yanliu, who had not yet adapted to the light, and dragged him outside. What do you want to do? Let Lulu go. Before she could adapt to the sunlight from the darkness, she felt Yang Yanliu being taken away. Qian Yuman immediately stood up and wanted to chase him. Let me go. Yang Yanliu struggled, unwilling to be taken away by these people. Her little face was full of fear, but she was too delicate and was no match for these barbaric men, so she could only be dragged out by force. Wherever you want to take me, let me go. Yang Yanliu kept struggling, but to no avail, and couldn't break free at all. Hands and feet were tied, and it was too late for her to try. When she finally stood up, Yang Yanliu had been dragged out of the house. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 1510. Chapter 1510 The Coming of Death 1. Let Lulu go, don't hurt her. She's just an ordinary little woman. Do you hear me? Let her go. If anything happens, come to me. Don't hurt her, Qian Yuman shouted anxiously, because her feet were tied up. When she jumped to the door was closed again, and Yang Yanliu had been taken away by those people. Qian Yuman jumped to the door and slammed it with her body. The solid wood door didn't move at all. She could only hear their figures walking further and further away with her ears. Yang Yanliu kept shouting and struggling, and the voice of fear gradually faded away. No matter how much Qian Yuman shouted or banged on the door, she could not stop Yang Yanliu from being taken away. Who are these people and what are they going to do to Lulu? When will Mr. Tang come? Qian Yuman looked at the dark surroundings sadly, hoping that the person who kidnapped Lulu would not hurt her. Yang Yanliu, who was taken away, struggled for a while to no avail, then stopped struggling and looked around with a pair of timid eyes. Is it surrounded by tall trees and in the wilderness? Why bring her here? Brother, can you let me go? These men in black ignored her and dragged her to the mountain. A large pit was dug halfway up the mountain. The pit was over there, and there was a coffin next to it. My heart instantly went cold. I looked at the pit and coffin in disbelief. Are they going to bury her alive? No, do not want. Let me go, I don't want to die. Please, I have a 2-year-old son at home. What will he do if the child loses me? Please, please, fear made Yang Yanliu's legs weak. Needing these men in black to carry her away. Looking at the pit in the distance, she was frightened. Tears had already covered her face, and death seemed to be waving to her. Could it be that she is dead today? She couldn't figure out who wanted her to die. These people seemed unable to hear Yang Yanliu's pleas, so they forced her into the coffin and nailed Yang Yanliu inside. Then he put the coffin into the soil and buried it, and found dry leaves from around it to cover up the traces. Yang Yanliu was in the coffin, patting and shouting constantly. The cold coffin is cold to the core. It was different from the small dark room where Qian Yuman was with her and there were people to talk to. The body cannot move much here, it is quiet, and there is a biting cold. Yang Yanliu kept crying, feeling that death was constantly approaching her. The air in the coffin became thinner and thinner, and the air inside the coffin slowly became stuffy, making her covered in sweat and her consciousness began to become blurred. Is she going to die? Just like that he left the human world. She and Xingai have not yet reconciled, have not explained what happened back then, and have not yet received his forgiveness. If he knew he was dead, what would his reaction be? Should he laugh indifferently, or mourn for him? What a sad few days. Maybe it's because I have no expression. In his eyes, I am a woman who forced him to marry with death, a person who would do anything for money. Perhaps her death would bring him relaxation and peace. Perhaps, her leaving can free him. It's just a pity that her young son has not had a father since he was a child. After finally getting a father, his mother left him forever. Little Wang Wang, Mom is sorry for you. Xingai, I love you. If there is still a chance, I will work hard to win your forgiveness and make you fall in love with me again. End of this chapter.